Chapter 1. Enoch. Sweat glistened and formed hot beads on Enoch's strong brow, bronze like copper from working in the vast lands. Crouched low and tucked behind a humongous father tree, he waited, praying the coverage would be enough. A twig snapped. Leaves crunched. He resisted the urge to flinch. The creature must be behind him. No, wait. In front. Again he heard the unmistakable sound of movement, just 3 paces to his right side, then quickly again to his left. Maybe he miscalculated. Instead of 1, there must be 4 of them tracking him. Tubal-Cain, he thought with disgust. The rival from the tribe of Cain had betrayed him. Even though they were both potential bearers of the seed, both the 7th from first father Adam, and both the next in line to rule in Adam's place, their similarities ended there. Why did I trust him, Enoch thought woefully. Splitting up to search for the healing Alru was just a guise to lead me into a trap. Now my tribe may pay for my foolish decision. Enoch lifted his small 7-foot frame gingerly, his jet-black eyes surveying his options before risking a move. He would deal with Tubal-Cain later. Right now he had to take cover. Before nightfall. Time was running out. The power of the light was diminishing fast, and with it the last of his strength. The beads of perspiration, now streams of salty punishment flowing unhindered down his face, stung his eyes and clouded his vision. Enoch didn't dare blink. He was being tracked by something with a higher intelligence than he had anticipated. Now he knew it wasn't 4 beasts, but 1, with the ability to move fast. If he were correct, the strong scent from the pungent evergreen should cover his own stench. A strong gust whistled eerily through the upper branches of the trees. It stopped. Silence. A gust of air swooshed again. Glory to the light, thought Enoch gratefully. The creature must have moved on. Enoch instantly froze as he realized that wasn't wind. That controlled, regular sound reminded him of something familiar. Breathing. Something very large was in the wood with his head. Could it see him? Sheer desperation forced him to think again. Maybe this wasn't one of Tubal-Cain's trained animals. Perhaps he didn't send his pack of hunting beasts to kill him after all. What was it? Could this be a cherub, the being the elders had warned them about? Just then he saw it, or rather heard it. Swoosh! The fading light bent under the movement. He caught a glimpse of flesh, strange flesh, deep green and then tawny brown, like the leaves and trunk of the tree he was hiding behind. Swish! There it was again, and this time the soft red clay vibrated under his calloused feet. Now he could see nothing at all, but he could hear it running. No one had actually seen a cherub in 7 ages. The tale of first father Adam's last experience with one was enough to put the fear of the Ancient One in anyone. Why was it running? It could have killed him if it had wanted to. Enoch took a few tentative steps forward. Tracks. You might be fast and camouflaged, but you do have feet, thought Enoch as he followed the oversized imprints. His desire for the rare Alru plant needed to stave off the sickness overtaking the sons of Adam outweighed his fear of the dreaded cherubim. Plus, it hadn't killed him when it had the chance. That had to be a sign of the Ancient One's approval. Quickly, Enoch formulated a plan. He could follow the trail right to the outer edges of the Forbidden Garden, gather the Alru plants, and head back before the sun sleeps. If he lost the tracks, he would go back to his camp and search again when the sun was born and the protection of the one mind was the strongest. And the favor of the Ancient One, Enoch followed the tracks deeper into the forest. Mist rising from the ground, thick and fragrant with the musk from turquoise petals hanging overhead, shrouded him from the waist down and cooled his limbs. Refreshed by the spray, Enoch explored his surroundings with curiosity. The Alru grew low to the ground, usually close to a water source, he had been told. The unmistakable scent of Sky's tears filled his nostrils. He could just make out the deliberate rhythm of it flowing nearby. The tracks, too, led in that direction, along with a conglomeration of other, mostly 4-legged animal tracks. Some he knew, others he did not. A huge pterodactyl dove through the flowery branches above to land high and hidden in the treetops. No doubt he was taking position to hunt when darkness rose. I won't fill his belly, Enoch told himself reassuringly. If he won't listen to reason, I'll subdue him if I must. Enoch could still command most animals while light filled the heavens. True, Some of the more rebellious ones, like Tubal-Cain's wolves, were resistant. Even at the sun's peak, the softening sky reminded him that his authority faded in the black of the night when bizarre influences overtook the animals. Enoch normally slept with the sun, enjoying the protective rest given by the Ancient One. If he were caught awake at night, he would be an unrepentant beast. Without warning, the tracks ended, stopping his fretful introspection just in time. "Thank the light," Enoch whispered under his breath. The thick foliage right in front of his last supersized footprint hit a sudden drop in the terrain. Enoch clutched a fat vine to regain his balance as his left foot scattered loose soil into the crevice below. The trails of 4 distinct great waters met in wild abandon at the bottom of the chasm about 100 spans below. He gazed across the canyon. He was close. This had to be the outskirts of Adam's first home. It was bordered by the 4 rivers and separated by a great gulf. A sharper introspection of the lush cliff on the other side rewarded his daring. Alru. Tons of it decorated the jagged cliffs. It would be plenty, enough to sustain the sons of Adam and keep the sickness at bay for at least 7, maybe 8 more generations. This would buy them some precious time needed for the true bearer of the seed to fulfill the prophecy. He just had to reach it before nightfall. He hadn't seen Tubal-Cain's familiar tracks during his search, nor did the valley below or the rock face reveal his presence. Perhaps he had bested his clever cousin this time. Without another thought, Enoch quickly reached for his pack, still tied securely around his waist with lengths of skin. Grabbing the stakes and twine he had planned to use to set up camp, he threw the lifeline across the canyon and swung himself across with experienced agility. His gentle nature had perfected this method of avoiding confrontations with animals or even men when necessary. His nimble hands and feet found a home just 2 paces from the edging cautiously towards them. He used his carver to dig into the rock-strewn earth and move him closer to his goal. In a matter of moments, he was there. Enoch began cutting away clumps of the leafy vegetation. Its stinging, invigorating aroma clearing his nostrils confirmed their potency. Working deftly and quickly, he uprooted the leaves from the firm earth and stuffed them into his sack. His sinewy back and wiry arms and legs, used to hard work, ached from under the strain of his task. Enoch ignored the pain, knowing he was close to success when a sharp sensation struck his back. The sound of wingspans stirring near his head made him look up in surprise. He had been so intent on the Alru, he hadn't noticed the hungry pterodactyl from the forest. It had followed him. His precarious position and blood-stained hands and knees made him an easy target. And now, as the sun yawned and stretched into slumber, darkness awoke. All living creatures knew life was in the blood. When darkness fell, many creatures craved the thick crimson fluid as much as the flesh itself. Circling and diving toward his head in deliberate motions, the pterodactyl attacked again and again. Enoch's carver had connected with the beast, wounding him a couple of times with the light. The bird was persistent. With blood dripping from its wounded wing, it dove again, this time with sharp fangs and claws revealed. If Enoch could eat a little of the Alru, it might restore his life force and give him strength to fend off the flying beast. He couldn't risk using his only free hand to stuff the plant into his mouth. Plus, how much could he eat without the Alru overpowering him? Too much would bring death. His only chance was to stand and fight. As Enoch lurched to strike deep into the bird this time, his carver, slick with sweat and blood, slipped from his hand and plunged into the great waters below. It was over. Enoch stared in defiance at the bird's final approach. Suddenly, the pterodactyl changed directions, like a startled squirrel, and flew towards the forest across the divide. Enoch instinctively knew why when the familiar vibration he had experienced in the forest returned. A larger predator had arrived. He could feel rather than see the presence overhead. It was the cherub. Some strange fascination made him look up. Human-like feet hovered above the turf, only 4 paces above. A lion-like tail snapped to and fro, while its humongous wings, feathered in downy magnificence, waved back and forth in unhurried grace. Committed to his fate, Enoch arched back to see the horrible face, blinding and brilliant like the dawn, and a sword sharp enough to slice a sequoia with a flick. Great arms raised the silvery pointed death, flashing to and fro in one silent motion. He had been wrong about the favor of the Ancient One. He was not the bearer. Enoch, dazed by the intense focus from the hidden face, prepared to receive the judgment of the Ancient One. A sound broke his concentration. Enoch. Did someone call his name? Enoch. There it was again, barely a whisper from his left side. Come. Enoch ignored it. Not only was he going to die, he was losing his mind. Come now, whispered the voice again. This time a calloused hand also gripped his left wrist, wringing it from its hold on the crevice. This was not his imagination. Enoch turned soundlessly in disbelief as he took in the figure of a man, also on the rock face. How did he get here? When did he get here? Enoch wondered. How did he get here? When did he get here? Enoch wondered silently. I know a way out, the stranger said, pulling him sideways. Don't look at the cherub. Move away slowly. Enoch followed the stranger's lead as silently as he could. His hands were skin raw now from gripping the rough rocks as he edged sideways towards the stranger. He felt the weight of his pack lighten as he sorrowfully saw the Aru falling through an opening at the bottom of his pack. I can't fix it now, Enoch realized, forcing back bitter tears. As he moved further and further away from the cherub and blazed in glory at the top of the cliff, he could make out the stranger's features more clearly. He had the look of the tribe of Cain. Thick, muscular limbs navigated the rocky surface easily. Chiseled shoulders, also tanned by days in the light, bulged with brute strength. Shoulder-length dark hair hanging in chunky cords was restrained at the nape of his neck with twine and animal bone. Pelts of fur covered his. Finally, they reached a large opening in the cliff, hidden from view by a hanging moss-like plant with white and yellow flowers. This is where he had been hiding, thought Enoch. He had probably seen the whole thing. The attack of the pterodactyl, the cherub's appearance. Maybe the favor of the Ancient One was upon him after all. This stranger had saved his life. Enoch wanted to ask him his name and thank him properly, but the stranger was moving very fast now through the dark winding paths of the cave. Talking was not an option. Only a wooden stake the stranger lit with heaven's fire provided shelter against the pitch-black maze. Enoch struggled to keep up with him, scraping his badly damaged knees with each misstep. The cave seemed to be swirling, twirling, and shifting, the floor shifting as he tread upon it. I must be delirious, thought Enoch, stumbling with fatigue. If we don't stop soon, I'll collapse in the darkness and never find my way out of here. Oddly, the darkness began to lift from some unknown source. Dim golden light emanating from the sparkling walls illuminated the way to a sun-filled hole at the end of the cave. The stranger stood at the opening, waiting for Enoch to catch up. Breathless, Enoch ran towards him. Just as he did, the man disappeared through the opening. The bright light cloaked him. Enoch had no choice but to follow. Logic, pain, and joy sliced through him, examining him, separating him until he was no more. Then after time had its way with him, it released him. Enoch touched his face with a rough hand, not sure it was still there, and stumbled onto a clearing. Soft, well-tended grass, luxuriant and green, embraced his aching feet. The sound of racing water drew his attention onward. There before him was an expansive river flowing, twisting and surging upwards towards a mountain range surely as firm as the ground beneath his feet and as transparent. If his sight were better, he was sure he could navigate the terrain on the other side. The Aru he risked his life to gather grew in joyful abundance along the river's bank. The stranger was nowhere to be. Chapter 1. Enoch. Sweat glistened and formed hot beads on Enoch's strong brow, bronze like copper from working in the vast lands. Crouched low